All right, two DC videos in one day. I was actually in the middle of a workout and some breaking information came out, and I wanted to do a quick video on this and talk about what this could possibly mean for the DC universe in the future. And the good news is what I'm about to talk about is not rumor because it was confirmed directly by James Gunn. So let's take a look at this direct article that talks about Chris Pratt and others coming over to the DCU. So here is the article, and we're going to go through this article right here. It says Chris Pratt will probably join new DC Universe, says James Gunn. So we're going to look at this article, and I'm going to talk about what characters he could possibly play and what some of the possibilities are. But he says, this article says DC Studios CEO James Gunn revealed he expects Chris Pratt and other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy cast to join his new DCU slate. Gunn spent much of the last decade working in the superhero game, and he has made plenty of friends along the way in the talent he has collaborated with at both Marvel and DC. The Guardians of the Galaxy cast particularly has turned into something of a family, both on and off the screen, which I would agree with. If anybody saw the Christmas special that they had on HBO Max, the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, it was pretty awesome. And they did get almost everybody back except Zeldana. When Gunn first took the jump over to DC, he brought Guardians of the Galaxy veterans Michael Rooker and Sean Gunn with him for the Suicide Squad. And even in coming back to Marvel for Guardians Volume 3, his DC collaborators, I don't know how you say their names, both came along for the ride. So now that Gunn is set to stick around at DC Studios to serve as the architect of the next DCU slate, many are wondering which of his Marvel comrades might be joining him for the ride, especially now that Volume 3 will be bringing the tale to an end for this roster of the Guardians. And he said he is done, and this story will close out Guardians for good. So we're going to see a direct quote from him here in a minute. In a recent interview with Empire, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 director and DC Studios, James Gunn, hinted that Star-Lord actor Chris Pratt, along with several of the other Guardian stars, will probably join his new superhero universe. The fact that he mentioned Chris Pratt first, I think, is probably a done deal, and we'll talk about this here in a few minutes. Gunn listed off several actors from his Guardians cast as being like his family, before revealing that he expects to reunite with them down the line, probably at his other job as DC Studios CEO. This was his direct quote. "The cast are like my family. I cannot tell you how close I am to Chris Pratt and Palm and Dave and Zoe and Karen, but I also know I will work again with all those people individually again, probably at my other job." So let's talk about what this quote exactly means. So what does this all mean? Well, let's look at this first, what the quote is and who he's mentioning first. Chris Pratt was mentioned first. I think that's probably a done deal. This is probably the first positive news I've seen come out of the DC universe. My favorite all-time character is Indiana Jones, and I will tell you that Chris Pratt, ever since I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I always thought he would make a perfect Indiana Jones. And I have never felt comfortable with anybody else playing that character. I have all the comic books ever printed with Indiana Jones. I have all the novels. I have a ton of Indiana Jones stuff. And the only person I've ever seen that could rival or even come close to what Harrison Ford has done is Chris Pratt. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but it's true. I wouldn't want anybody else in that role, period. To think that he could come join my second favorite superheroes, the superhero universe, pretty freaking awesome. Now let's talk about who he might play, and then we're going to talk about some of the other individuals who they could play, and there are some that might be pretty obvious. I probably think, now, first of all, I'm going to point out that this shows that James Gunn is a liar, okay? He said he doesn't cast anybody until the scripts have been completed and they're ready to go. Obviously, that's a lie if he expects to work with these people, and the fact that he mentioned Chris Pratt first, I'm betting he does have a contract. Could we be looking at the new Superman? Oh, I certainly hope not. I just had to throw that out there. I hope that's not the case. We'll talk about that. But he did mention Chris Pratt first, and I think that's a done deal. So who could he actually be playing? My guess is that if he came over, I think my number one pick would be probably someone like Jor-El. Not Superman, but maybe Superman's father. I don't think he has enough of a chiseled look to play the Superman character. But he could play Batman. I think he's too round in the face. Well, you could make the same argument for Batman, but I don't see him playing Green Lantern. I think of Green Lantern as a taller, skinnier kind of individual. Batman's bulkier, could have a presence, and I think Chris Pratt could fit that role quite well if they can, and I would like to see some acting chops on him to bring a character like that to life. Now, this is pure speculation on my part, but I do believe they're going to be casting a brand new, my personal opinion, and this is my opinion, is that they're going to cast a whole new Batman. I really think that's what is going to happen when all is said and done. So that's who he could play. Now let's look at some of the others. I think the most obvious is Dave Bautista. I think he would make a perfect Bane. Could you envision that? Having both those guys back and having a Bane and a Batman with those two? I think that's pretty awesome as long as they take it seriously and they do it pretty hardcore. I'm still not convinced that Gunn is going to do things hardcore, but you've got that. Karen could play a Lois Lane. The other characters could be up for debate on who they could all play, but he does stick with a lot of the same actors, and we did see a couple of those guys in the Suicide Squad movie that was released, last year. So I think this is positive news that we are moving in the right direction. With this news, I do like the fact that this was brought up. I had never seen this quote, so if anybody comes in and says this is old, I didn't look to see how old this was. This may have been mentioned in an interview several months ago, for all I know. So if people come in and say that, I'm sorry. This was information that was just posted, and I took a break from what I was doing to come do a quick video on this. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? I think this could be a positive thing. I still don't know. I do know that James Gunn has talked about Green Lantern being a very important character going forward. I think one of the first projects that will be announced will be a Green Lantern movie. Personally, I'd like to see Ryan Reynolds back in that role. He was not the problem with that film. It was the actual storyline. I'd like to see them somehow keep him and roll him in with the DC universe. I mean, they're bringing back John Constantine. They're bringing back, Keanu Reeves to play that character, and that's an old movie as well. So they could definitely bring bits and pieces from other areas of the universe and bring it into the DCU. I don't want Pattinson, though. I will tell you that. I've talked about that in my last video. But I had to get this information out here for you guys. What do you guys think about this news? It's the first positive thing I've seen come out of all of this, and I'm hopeful that some of this will come to fruition. But again, we're going to have to wait to see, what the slate is and what he has planned. And any casting, I don't expect any casting to be announced when they announce the slate. I think just the slate is going to be announced. But I can guarantee you behind the scenes they have writers, producers, and actors, getting signed on with contracts. So there are things happening behind the scenes that we are not seeing or hearing about at all. That is completely in the background at this stage. Those things are happening, especially if they're planning out a 10-year plan. All right, that's all I have for you at this stage. If any more information comes out, I will be covering it. I do appreciate it. We'll see you on the next video.